It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back as we head back into the wild. Now, Southern Africa has undoubtedly one of the most beautiful and abundant coastlines in the world, one of our most precious resources, from warm tropical beaches to jagged stormy shores. Now, George and Margot Branch have dedicated half a century of their lives to studying the sea, and their new book, Living Shores, is a culmination of that experience. For today's Into the Wild segment, we turn the spotlight onto our coastline. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. It's awe-inspiring when I try to put it in perspective that this has been a life's work, has it not?
Yeah, it sounds terrible when you say it's half a century, but...
I'm sorry, I actually did when I read that, I thought maybe we could have phrased that slightly differently, but it is worth spending a lifetime on subject matter just like this. I think few people will choose a married couple to work together to this degree, but you've been fortunate enough to take this journey together. Why do this book? What inspired the two of you to embark on this life's path together?
Well, it's been like a holiday, but we've discovered we've discovered so many exciting and interesting things that we really wanted to share them. You know.
It must be an incredible journey to get to this. How would you describe the book? It's very difficult for me to put it into words. How would you describe the book?
Well, I think it's a combination of two things. First of all, it's our own personal curiosity about how the world works. And secondly, it combines with it the desire to communicate this excitement in the remarkable science that's been done around the coast.
So we look at two very different sections within the book. Obviously, we've got the marine ecosystem, something that thankfully now the world is standing up and taking more notice of, cognizance of how much damage we are doing in that space. And that, of course, then brings in the human interaction. Why was it important to look at it from these two perspectives?
Well, I think that when we wrote the book originally, not a great deal was known about the systems, and that's enormously expanded. But what's really changed is attitudes and approaches to managing the system, because it's been revolutionized over the last 10 to 20 years.
And I'll pose that question to you. You can think about it, if we're doing enough, if we are far off the mark. But what was the moment? Was there a moment where you decided, because the original book, as I understand it, was published first in 1981.
Yes.
Were you missing your holiday and decided it's time to get back out there? What was the drive to do an extension?
Well, there's so much has been discovered since we did the first book, and we've really just want to expand on that. We felt the first book was quite dated now, and when you think that computers, satellites, and digital photography and underwater photography has come in during that time, people's impression of the coast has changed enormously.
It must be incredible to go back to places that you had seen before to see changes. How much has changed in terms of what you experienced then to what you experienced with this?
Well, I think the big changes have been, first of all, the arrival of a whole bunch of alien species that have transformed the coastline.
Oh.
Secondly, as you can see from the images on screen there now, the whole coastline has been transformed over millennia. In fact, over millions of years, where sea level has risen and fallen, and consequences are enormous. And of course, we are ourselves now experiencing those changes in our modern world.
There's so much that I want to talk to you about this morning, but thank you so much for joining us. We're going to keep the lines open as well. If you've got any questions, we've got a wealth of knowledge here. 021-430-9881. Give us a call if you've got any questions regarding South Africa's incredible coastlines.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Doctor, thank you so much. Well done to the UCT engineering students. Mind-blowing stuff, and it's happening here in South Africa. Now, speaking about our beautiful country, it doesn't get more gorgeous than our coastlines, of course, and becomes a wonderful opportunity, a litmus test to see how the environment is doing during crazy times like the drought as it is at the moment, climate change, and of course, human interaction. And we've got George and Margot Branch, who have created the most beautiful book again, Living Shores. They did it first in 1981. They've now re-released with a brand new take on where the environment, where the coastline is, where the human headspace is. I think most Cape Townians at the moment, and now that we know that the whole of South Africa has been declared to be in drought, so we're not alone, Carpies, we're not alone. We have to ask, is the drought having an effect on our coastlines from what you were able to see in your exploration?
I think the drought isn't affecting the coastline a lot, it's affecting us as human beings enormously. But I think the drought is just symptomatic of very much bigger things that are going on in the environment. The one is longer-term changes in climate, and the other is longer-term changes in the human population and densities. And when you combine the two, you get the situation that we have in Cape Town at the moment.
Yeah, that is spreading and it's not going to change. I mean, we again say, just please keep saving water. I know we had 3 drops of rain, keep saving water. When you talk about large-scale climate change, how have you seen that exhibited in the coastlines?
Well, the sea temperature has changed quite a bit in our coastline. I think George will expand on that.
Yes, I think the sea temperature change and the change in acidity in the water are the two things that have affected things more than the drought as such. But with sea temperature change, some areas are warming up and some areas are actually cooling down, because as the land heats, the wind increases, blows more surface waters away, and so you get more deep upwelling water that's cold coming up to the surface. So actually in the south here, our waters are actually cooling, and the lobsters and the kelp and things are busy migrating to keep up with that. They're shifting southeast around the coast as a consequence.
Wow. If I had to say the word desalination, it's a bit of a dirty word here in Cape Town. Do you think, will this have an effect on the environment?
Well, I think desalination is an easy solution in a lot of ways because there is a lot of ocean. But the secret is when that salty, extra salty water that is left over after you've cleaned it, it needs to be returned to the sea in a place where there's enough motion and where it can be spread quickly so that it doesn't settle in a very salty area and affect the animals there.
Oh man, we're gonna be creating whole new pockets of oceans within the ocean there. And I think this is what really brings to bear where we are at the moment, is the knock-on effect of all of these things and our effect. We're going to chat a bit more about the human element and where the mindset is, where scientists' mindsets are. We'd love to hear from you guys. If you've got any questions or comments on our beautiful coastline, maybe you want to share some pics, 021 430 9881 is the number to dial, or you can share with us, of course, on our social media platforms.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. You are just in time to head back into the wild. My mind is racing at the moment because I've got so many questions. I'm loving having George and Margot Branch, the co-authors of Living Shores, a beautiful book that they first released in 1981 that they have now re-released, looking at the human interaction and the ecosystems on our beautiful coastlines. And there are so many kind of side branches that spring out of this. So many interesting new topics of discussion born out of this incredible feature. So well done, first of all, on creating something truly beautiful. I think the most important part from our perspective as conservationists, we should all be thinking about protecting this ecosystem. Thankfully, more people are thinking about the oceans now. Let's talk about fishing. We've got this beautiful photo that it's a time capsule. It really does. We should all be wearing sun hats, first of all, in today's age. But overfishing, are we fishing our oceans dry? From your explorations, how do you feel about that?
Well, the answer depends very much on which fish you're going to talk about. Up on the screen here, you will see an image taken in 1905.
Wow.
And this image comes from the Hermanus Museum, and it shows one day's catch. We counted there were 172 different fish there, and the heaviest was a 50-kilogram fish there. And that's just a reminder how things have changed for lionfish. Lionfish specifically have been badly depleted, down to maybe 5% of roundabout where they were. But when you come to things like sardines, as you're seeing here, the story is quite different. Here they're quite well managed, and they're recognized as being a catch that's properly managed. So, and if it came to hake, the same story is true. Hake is the only marine stewardship certified fishery in the country. And that says internationally you can recognize this as a well-managed thing. And it's worth mega bucks to the industry because the price rockets as soon as it's a certified fishery.
Because I mean, we keep treating them like non-renewable resources, but it's renewable if we manage them. When we look at things like palamon, crayfish, mussels, delicacies all over the world, but we often hear about poaching. Are these in danger? Will we get to a point, do you think, Margot, that we won't see these delicacies in our oceans anymore? now that we know the crayfish are migrating as well.
Well, I think the Perlamon definitely, because they don't move much and they're in an intertidal area.
Soft targets,
They're
yeah.
soft targets, and they're very slow growing as well. You know, normally they're 8 to 10 years the size that they harvested, so it's a slow growing.
What is the answer there? Do we need to be farming? Do we need to be reintroducing? Do we need to be increasing
Well, I think
police budgets?
we need twin efforts here. The farming unquestionably is important and enormously important economically. We are now farming much more than we can harvest from the sea. And some of those images you showed a few minutes ago showed juvenile abalone that have been cultured and grown to a size when they can be sold commercially. And there you can see some of the juveniles. They look absolutely exquisite.
Yeah.
See how they change colour as you feed them different things. You start on bacteria, that's the red shell, and then you change to kelp, that's
the white shell.
the blue shell.
Oh, that is amazing, guys. Thank you so much. I know we're always drifting into a really negative space, but we have to reinforce that. But we're going to go into a positive space. We're going to paint a positive picture because I know that this is something that you love, and there's a reason why you love our coastline. So we're going to inspire you to get out there and explore our coastlines. Again, if you'd like to weigh in on the conversation, please give us a call 021 430 9881.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Now that I'm getting perspective on what it's taken to create Living Shores, the second edition after the first was introduced in the 80s, courtesy of George and Margot Branch, the co-authors, and I think custodians now, I'm going to say, of our coastlines. This is amazing to me how much you've learnt and how much has changed going back to our coastlines now. I think, and maybe I'm going to ask you to open that in the book, that there is something now that we have gained through this process, and I love that, spreading sea wisdom. And I'm glad we're becoming wise through this, but what is the wisdom of the sea? What is sea wisdom?
Well, I think what excites me is the number of people who are now being taken to the shore and are learning actively in situ, looking at real life. That illustration we showed there was Dalebrook Marine Protected Area. And we've calculated that about 25,000 students have been through the experience of going to that shore and learning about it in that marine protected area.
Why is this so important, Margaret? Why do we need to get children there? Why do we need to actually engage with our coastlines?
Well, I think one of the big things in this country is that in about at the turn of the century, the environment was brought into the center of the school syllabus. Before that, it was a sort of science society thing.
Yeah.
Now it's the heart of the syllabus, so that the teachers and the students are much more involved in the environment in all areas.
And we need that. How can you expect a generation to protect something that they've never actually engaged with? And we've got the most amazing diversity within South Africa as well. I think that is awe-inspiring in itself. Maybe we can round off with lessons learnt. And I would imagine there have been so many personal lessons through this journey, but can you highlight one major lesson? What can the ocean teach us? What can we learn from our coastlines?
Well, I think it's quite exciting in a sense when you look at what animals do in their interactions. We tend to think of the tooth and claw aspect, but they are the most extraordinary interactions that take place between different organisms. One of them is a little shrimp that acts as a cleaner on fish. You're actually seeing a wonderful illustration of it here. This photograph was taken by Peter Tim up at Sardana Bay. And you can see a little shrimp moving over a moray eel here, and it'll clean its flesh, remove the bacteria, remove parasites and things like that. And to me, it's the most exquisite example of cooperation in nature. If these cleaner shrimps and cleaner fish didn't exist, coral reefs would collapse. So I think there's a profound lesson to be learned in our own personal relationships and how we interact with the sea, drawn from nature.
I absolutely love that. The smallest acts can have very far-reaching consequences and also a very positive effect, just like this book. Thank you so much for inspiring a new generation with what you guys have put together here. It really is awe-inspiring.
Thanks for having us.
Loved having you here. George and Margot Branch, co-authors of Living Shores. Go and get a copy now.